Hello, Pieter.
Hello.
Thank you so much for accepting to do this interview with me today.
Pleasure.
So we are here in Beauvais in France. We are at the Festival International de Violoncelle de Beauvais, and you are playing tonight, right?
Yeah, I'm in the opening night, which is an honor, but I've been in Beauvais quite a few times. I also was artistic director, whatever that title means. It did mean something for 3 years, and I programmed 3 festivals, and it was a huge pleasure. And there's a whole circle of very dedicated volunteers. It's a big family, and they organize this extremely well.
So now going back in time a little bit in your life, I was wondering how did you start the cello when you were a kid?
Well, I was obsessed with the cello from the age of 2 because I heard the cello in the string quartet of my father, who's an amateur violinist, and they rehearsed very frequently and very intensely. So it was 4 friends just discussing and fighting about how to play the music, and I thought that was fascinating. So and I was quiet enough to sit in the rehearsals, to sit in and not disturb them. So it was the cello that I fell in love with, not with the violin of my father, but the cello. And at the age of 4, I knew that was going to be my instrument. I still had to wait 2 years, and then I met my teacher, but she fell ill, and then I had to wait another 2 years. But at 4, I had already started the piano myself, but played a lot and started composing stuff in mainly in B or C minor, minor keys. So it wasn't great music, but music was just very important. I mean, I was not a nerd. I was sort of a normal kid at school, and I was quite sporty, but the cello was going to be central to my life as a teenager.
Do you remember your first lesson?
Not the very first. Well, maybe I do, but I was very lucky with my first teacher. She thought it was very important that the bass, the technical bass was healthy and sound. So she really wanted to start very slowly and not leave any gaps in technique. She made sure that there was always play and there was always music, but it would be like the last 15 minutes. So the first 15 minutes was quite dry, but she was so musical that anything you did with the bow was a meaningful thing and was a characterful thing. So it would be, well, let's say half an hour, 20 minutes technique. Then there was an etude, and then there was some play in some sort. Mm-hmm. I'm still grateful to how she taught me and what she taught me. I still repeat many messages and philosophies that she taught me. And it's literally true. I almost do that every week with my classes in Amsterdam and Düsseldorf. That I refer to the basics of healthy bowing technique, which means that the bow should be always alive. There's never one speed in a bow, and the bow needs to breathe, and you need to be powerful at the tip, so not just at the frog, and make sure there's life in the bow. Wow. And it doesn't mean that you go in all angles. The other big principle was that the bowing needed to be straight, and I still think that's important. Of course, I move towards the bridge and towards the fingerboard, but I stay parallel to the bridge, which means you need flexibility in your fingers most of the time. And I still teach even my master students or concertexamen students, as they are called which is postdoctoral after masters in Germany, who are soloists. And when we do Bach Fourth Prelude, I still talk about stupid basic things like angles and like how you need to be active with your little finger to make sure all your bass notes are bowed in a 90 degrees angle, and therefore they sound well and warm and controlled and all that. But now I mentioned Bach. She was always very down to earth as Bach was concerned. If there was no healthy basis in the interpretation, then it was a useless interpretation for her. Any pedanterie or ambition or pretense or pretentiousness is completely useless in Bach. So, I mean, there's not even room for frivolity. There is room for energy. There's room for elegance and sometimes a sort of a German wit, but it's very genuine music, and the musicians should be humble, but also energetic. I mean, there's never a dull moment in Bach. So that was also one of the things that she taught me, and till in my 30s. And even 40s, I played for her. I mean, not like a singer would return to a coach every month or so, but occasionally I would play stuff to her, and often Bach suites, and she would let me know when it was wrong or boring, or not alive enough. So the early lessons that I got from her, those first 10 years, are hugely significant.
And since you talk about Bach suite, your journey with Bach seems extremely important to you. You recorded the Bach suite 3 times.
Yeah, and I will do it a few more times. And it's also a sort of a thermometer, a barometer. I mean, if I'm bored with Bach, then something is wrong with my mentality. And so if I can't turn on the energy, then and find the pleasure, then I'm not healthy. And it also, I always say to myself, if in 10 years' time or next year I don't have enough to say with Bach, then I might as well stop playing the cello or being a musician. I should be able to do something that I couldn't or that I didn't do 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I need. Otherwise, I would have peaked in. Well, I've got 3 recordings, and maybe some people might say that the second is very nice, but I can't admit that I peaked in my 30s. So the third recording was made when I was 50. The first one was 28, 29. So I thought it was going to be intervals of 7 years, but then there was suddenly something like 14 years or 15 years, and now I need to make sure that it's not another 14 years. Well, maybe it will be. And I had some bad luck with live recordings of the Bach suites, where they were planned, and I was playing in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam in the big hall for 2,000 people, and I wasn't I wasn't healthy, and the same happened with another Amsterdam concert, and I played them in Wigmore Hall in London, and then things organizationally went wrong with recording it, and of course, ironically, then you play your best concert. But so I'll stick to Bach, and if my Bach is getting dry, then something is wrong.
So after your first 10 years of studying the cello with your first teacher, what happened?
Well, she always said you need to study with Bielsma. That was her idol. I mean, they were the same age. She was even older than Bielsma, but she raised me to become his student, and that also meant that she raised me playing the gut strings from the beginning. And Bielsma was one of the last modern cellists playing gut strings in the country, and he kept doing that till his death. So I played gut strings till I was 25 or so, but that meant that I did the big concertos, or most of the big concertos, Dvorak, Elgar, Tchaikovsky, Saint-Saëns, and so forth, with gut strings, and I'm still grateful that I did that, because it so colors your bowing technique. I remember the first lesson with Bielsma, and he said, "Well, after the summer you come with Chopin sonata," and he always asked his students to play what he was playing. So he was recording that sonata after the summer. So he wanted his students to come with that piece, and then he could play in a lesson. He would, and half of the time he would be playing, he would be practicing basically, but I thought I was an okay cellist. My entry exam was with Arpeggione sonata and difficult stuff. But then he showed me some phrases, and his sound was so enormous that I was very impressed. And so I made sure that in a month's time I had the same sort of sound. But in order to make a big sound on gut strings, you need a very healthy bowing technique. You need to be able to go to that bridge and find the resistance and control it. But you can use that with steel strings as well. Most people don't do it, but when they start off with steel strings, they don't have that feeling of those possibilities. So the first 10 years were really an upbeat to learning with Bielsma, and with Bielsma it was not so much technique, although he was a very unconventional cellist and very creative, with technical solutions. So it was quite fun solving problems with him, because he would come up with fantastic fingerings and bowings and always very creative and unconventional, unorthodox. And not so traditional. Although he was, at the same time, he was very into researching ways the 19th century cellists played. The Davidov, Servet, Franchomme, Duport, Romberg. He was very into Romberg. Of course, Roboccherini. But he himself was very much his own man, and had very, very creative solutions and creative, personal style of playing. He did more or less base it on sources and what he thought was what his colleagues 200 years back did. He developed his own voice, which was great. Yeah, so that was 4 years with Bilsma, and then I was 21, and that's when it all had to start. I mean, it had already started because I organized my own series in Amsterdam from the age of 18 with programs like, well, I did 6 programs a year in the same venue, and I had about 400 people who came to all those concerts. And it was every year. It was the Bach suites, the Vibrato, the Brahms, the Britten suites, a Russian program, a French program, and so I built up a lot of routine and stage experience. And in the meantime, of course, I was asked to do that outside Amsterdam by promoters. And then I did 1 year with Paul Katz in America. And then I was 23. And yeah, then I had to find work. And I had enough of a name to make a living as a recitalist and doing concertos. But it was not until the first CDs came out in my late 20s that everything turned international. In a surprisingly big way. I mean, it was fantastic, and it was a big gift, and I'd never expected it. But mainly because I never thought about it. Of course, I wanted to be. An international soloist or of some sort, but even those words didn't come to my mind. But I wanted to compete with my colleagues, and people of my generation around the world, and do my thing and show my thing. And then I got the opportunity, and it was Japan and America and Australia and France and everywhere else. So that was, in short, that's how the first 20 years went.
How do you keep your technique as good as you want?
Practice a lot. Yeah, I mean, I still practice a lot, and I still practice new techniques and things that I couldn't do before. So in my 50s, I started recording all the Schubert and Brahms duos for cello and piano. Or no, for all the duos, because there are only 2 Brahms sonatas and there's no cello sonata or anything by Schubert. Although there's the Arpeggione sonata, but that's for Arpeggione. But there are 7 other pieces for violin, or 6 other pieces for violin and piano that I started to learn and to record. And one of those pieces is the Schubert Fantasy, which I practiced as a student because I was obsessed with that piece at some point. But I never, for some reason, performed it. So maybe I never did serious rehearsals with a pianist, but I just practiced it. And then 30 years later, I thought, no, come on, I have to do this, and I have to do it all. I have to do the rondo, the Schubert rondo. I have to do the flute variations. I have to do the big A major sonata, and that meant I had to practice a lot, and do really challenging things. I did the same with the violin sonatas, the Brahms violin sonatas and the clarinet sonatas. So it's kept me on my on edge, and practicing is a very, very satisfying and gratifying thing. And routines are good. I mean, we're here in a sort of semi monastery environment. I mean, it's a medieval hospital here. Not this particular place where we are, but routines, early practice before breakfast are beautiful, beautiful, and not dry things, but not slow scales or slow octaves. Of course, I have routines that I do, and I mean, there's this I don't know if you know them, the Basilaire Études Transcendentales. I did them as a student. No other student ever practiced them or knew about it, but I practiced them. And number one is arpeggios, 4-octave arpeggios, and just 34 bars, allegro, fast semiquavers. It's like the Opus 10 number 1 Chopin Etude, but then for cello. And that's what I do before breakfast, and it will appear on Instagram, like many other things that I did in the Corona times. And another thing that I'm now obsessed with is the A minor Paganini Caprice. Starts with arpeggios, but then it's but the bowing is 3 jettato and 1 back. So I want to be able to do that, and so that's fun. So practice is also meeting challenges and having fun and being ambitious.
So you were mentioning earlier that you were teaching in Amsterdam and Düsseldorf?
Yeah. Düsseldorf, I have a big class, and Amsterdam I have a 6, 7, sometimes 8 student class, but mainly 6, 7. So Düsseldorf is my main job. That's 2 fat days in a week. Every week, and I've got some spectacular students there, but also my Amsterdam class now is suddenly peaking. I've got some of the best students in Europe, I think. Yeah, it's great. It's just really exciting.
So those are advanced students?
Well, no, I've got 2 18-year-olds in Amsterdam now. One is top German talent, and one is possibly the top Norwegian talent. So this is very exciting. So the 4 new ones are bachelors, first-year bachelors, and 2 first-year masters. And that's exciting. But in Düsseldorf, I also have remarkable students from all over the place. Basically, I used to have great Brazilian talent, and who started very young with me. She's now in Basel, but I also have Australian, New Zealand, Japanese, American, Italian. Yeah, it's all very exciting, but yeah. So in Düsseldorf, I had Michiaki Ueno, who just won Genève competition, and so I worked with him quite many years, almost 6, 7 years, and so we had a big moment at the Lutosławski competition in Warsaw, where I was in the jury. Of course, I couldn't vote for him, but he got second prize. But then he did Helsinki and Tchaikovsky and München, and Munich, and it was only at Genève that he got his first prize, and that's just great to experience. That makes me. So it's not that I'm ambitious that I want my students to become winners, but I can be as excited by their successes as with my own.
What's the most important thing that you like to give to your student?
It's all about creativity, and you can't force somebody to create his own sound or voice or whatever, but that they question tradition, that they question conventions, and that they think about what they do and read this. Yeah, I mean, this is a super cliche, but reading scores on the one hand is very easy, but it's very important that you get the essence out of it. And to me, the essence starts with articulation. I mean, very, very clear sense of where the contrasts, where the meaningful details are, and how they fit into the character or the atmosphere of a piece. But once details are overlooked, then I lose interest.
And you seem to think always about the bow, and you didn't mention left hand. Is that secondary?
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's part of my upbringing that with gut strings, but also later on with Baroque cello and playing Bach, there's so much that the bow should do with articulation and bringing out overtones and creating a clear, rich sound. And then after that comes the enriching of that basic, beautiful sound with vibrato. It's some way or another. But vibrato is should be an embellishment, but very often turns into a corruption of the sound, in my taste. So there's definitely far too much vibrato going on, and you need intense vibrato sometimes, but you need intense bowing more. And it's surprising how little vibrato you need if the bow is intense and doing its job. Then you can make a sound start to shine very easily with just a little bit of vibrato, and then you can make it bigger if you want. Of course, you use everything you have. Your palette should be rich. But it shouldn't be the main thing. But yeah, I remember very clearly listening to the radio before breakfast as a 8-year-old or 7-year-old. I was down in the living room and turned the radio on, and it happened to be a classical music station, and there was a soprano singing. And the only thing I heard was, "Ah, this is ridiculous, cultivated vibratissimo." And nowadays I know that's normal classical traditional singing, but I thought it was the most ridiculous sound. It was not related to instrumental music. It was just a freak show to me, and that was my objective reaction. And I can still feel that when people start doing the cliched vibrato thing. And the other day I heard a concert on the radio, live concert by a soprano, a Dutch-American soprano. She did a big lead recital. I mean, it was Schumann, Poulenc, Debussy. Yeah, it was a huge recital, and every song she did was just terrific. And then I started just scientifically almost trying to observe what she was doing with vibrato, and of course you don't vibrate every syllable. Well, do I need to say more? I mean, the 20th century string playing in parts of the world were obsessed with continuous vibrato, which means you vibrate every syllable. Yeah, well, what an unhealthy obsession that is. Yeah. So that was so refreshing, and it was so beautiful and so meaningful, and so. But mainly, yeah. No, those two things. Beautiful and meaningful and super expressive. detailed but also an impression of spontaneity, and not an obsession with the technical challenge of continuous vibrato. Yeah. Yeah, you can't vibrate every syllable. That is wrong. It's just wrong. So, I've said it.
So, what would you say to someone who wants to begin the cello today?
Well, ask yourself, why do you want to play the cello? And it's probably because of the sound of a cello, and the essence of the cello sound is probably the G string. So the open G string should be gorgeously beautiful. So that's where you need to return to, and then of course you try to translate that beauty to the other strings, but getting that reverberance, that resonance working. That's where it all starts. So, and that's the bow. Of course, it's the bow. And I remember the first months, maybe half a year, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, open strings. It was just a big pleasure. And it's not no, it's so it needs to move, needs to breathe, and that gradual speed increase and weight increase, that needs to become second nature. And of course there are millions of exceptions in musical phrases where you need to do the opposite. But keeping the beauty of the sound alive is and not with a static bow. It's just a bit like continuous vibrato, every syllable vibrated, just one speed now. So it doesn't mean that you do loads of speed, but you need to have the feeling of streaming, of breathing, and it helps the bow change at the tip, because if you're scared of the bow change, you'll go slower, and then you panic, and then you get a disastrous bow change. So it's good for many things. You need to practice a lot. I mean, string players need to. I mean, if they've invested their 10,000 hours before they're 18, they're probably fine. But if they're short of those 10,000 hours, then they need to do 10,000 hours before they're 25. I mean, between 18 and 25. So they need to catch up. And because they're getting older, their brains don't work so well. So it's more time. So it's great when you've got all that time invested before you're 18. But if you're lagging behind a little bit, then you need to realize that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But of course, you can practice in many ways, and you can practice super intelligently, but also creatively. Doesn't mean that you can do with 2 hours a day. That is never going to be enough, because you also need to memorize music, and to memorize music, you need to play it a lot. One should memorize everything anyway. And I always say to my students, when I'm a little bit disappointed, that if I would have been starker, they would only have one chance to play a piece, and it needed to be from memory, and then I would say my thing, and then next week it's another piece. And if they can't play it from memory, then don't come to the lesson. I'm not that strict, but I am disappointed when students don't play from memory, because that means that they're not well prepared, or not as prepared as they could be. So yeah, practicing from memory. I mean, or presenting your stuff from memory, it's not important. It's a sign that you've worked, but also it means that there's not part of your concentration lost on reading. You can maybe hear better, or concentrate on your hearing more. Yeah, becoming a professional cellist is it's a big choice to make. It's a huge choice, and you, yeah, it's such an uncertain world, and it was in my days too. It's not that it's worse now. People say it's worse now, but I'm not sure. It's just super competitive, and people come from all over the world for jobs anywhere. So the competition is big, but it's intelligent, creative practicing, but as much as you can.
So would you say that it's not just enough to play well, you also have to handle pressure and handle competition?
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that too, but that's also a role of the teacher, and I try to do that more and more and more, that my students play for other people. So in class, I now do regular long sessions with everybody there, and they have to present a piece, and then I criticize them, or we talk about it, or but of course the cello repertoire is not that enormous, so there are always people that come with pieces that everybody else plays. I mean, the Haydn D major, or the Schumann concerto, or the Shostakovich, or the Dvorak, that is ridiculously overrepresented, that repertoire. So I prefer my whole class to be there, so that I don't need to repeat my message, because there's only that much that you can say about the Dvorak concerto. And it happens to be always the same what people miss when they play it and prepare it. So yeah, performing for friends also, because it's great to develop your ears and start listening as objectively as you can to what you do. But the moment there's one pair of ears listening with you, your playing changes and your awareness of things changes. And if it's 3 people or 3 friends or 10, again it changes. So but going from playing alone to playing for one person is already a big step, and people should do it. People should realize that they have to prove themselves for others. When they do an audition for an orchestra, and they have to do that hundreds of times, sometimes, well, dozens of times. They have to be used to the fact that people are judging them, and of course a concert audience is not so much judging; they're enjoying themselves, but also that makes you play differently. Yeah, so that should be part of teaching too. The awareness of what it is, what the difference is between playing alone and playing expressively for other people. and it's training, it's routine, it's habit, needs to be done. Yeah. And but that's true for etudes as well. Yeah, so I do loads and loads of proper etudes, my favourites, and they have to play them for each other, and it's fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Pieter.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. We should do this again. Yeah, when I have new things to say.
Okay, thank you, Pieter. I'm looking forward to hear you tonight, and yeah, all the best to you.
Yeah, to you too.